Hi, and welcome to Home Time. I'm Dean Johnson.
And I'm Robin Hartle.
In this videotape, we're going to talk about windows and doors. We'll try to give you a good idea of what's available on the market in terms of windows and doors, and then we'll show you how to put them in.
We'll be using this project site as a starting point, but we'll be highlighting some of the windows and doors used in previous Home Time projects. That'll include remodel jobs like this one, new construction, and replacement windows and doors.
We'll show you several exterior doors as well as a variety of interior door applications. So by the time you're done with the tape, you should be able to tackle most window or door projects without any problem. And we'll begin all that right after this.
Home Time is made possible by Chevy full-size pickup, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickup on the road. The National PBS series Home Time is made possible by the Stanley Works. Since 1843, Stanley has been committed to building quality tools and other products to help you do things right. At Home Time, we believe the best way to get the job done is to use the finest tools.
And this Chevy full-size pickup is one of our favorites. Equipped with an optional Vortec 5700 V8 engine, it generates 255 horsepower and 330 foot-pounds of torque to power you through the toughest jobs.
And with the optional third door, you've got lots of room for all your other tools.
And friends to help you use them.
At home or on the job site.
For work or play,
it's no wonder we at Home Time count on Chevy full-size pickups.
The most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
We'll be focusing on windows during the first part of this videotape, and we'll show you a variety of installations. But before that, we want to give you some details you need to know before starting any window project. First, let's run through some of the terms you'll be hearing and the window styles you'll be seeing. This is a double hung window. It has two sashes and they slide vertically along the side jambs. The bottom sash closes down on the sill and the top sash closes on the top jamb. This is another type of window known as a casement window. It has a single sash which is hinged to one of the side jambs and generally opens out for ventilation. It locks into the other side jamb when it's closed. This window is called an awning window, and it's a single sash hinged to the top jamb. It opens out from the sill. Single windows, like the ones we've shown you, can also be combined at the factory into larger units of 2 or more windows, known as multi-wide units. Their jambs are joined at what's known as the mullion, and they're installed as a single unit.
The window unit is secured inside a rough opening, which is a bit larger than the window frame. That gives you some leeway during installation. The rough framing is created during the framing process, and it's based on measurements supplied by the window manufacturer. The rough opening is defined by king and trimmer studs on the side, which support a header across the top and a sill across the bottom of the opening. Cripple studs transfer the weight of the top plates to the header. So in a bearing wall, the header must be strong enough to replace the wall framing displaced by the window opening. The bottom of the header defines the height of the window above the floor, and it generally looks best if the tops of the windows are all the same height above the floor. The sill height is determined by the height of the window unit, which may vary depending on the window chosen. If the rough opening is sized properly and framed in the wall level, plumb, and square, then window installation is pretty straightforward, as we'll show you right now in this project.
We're starting with the double hung window, which we set in the opening from the outside. We ordered all the windows for this edition with the exterior trim nailed into the jamb, and we pushed the unit into where the trim hits the sheathing. This trim is known as a brick molding, which matches the rest of the house.
We want the unit to be level in the opening, and we set a level over the top exterior trim to check that. We first determine the high side. From the inside, we set a shim under the support on that side, since it's always a good idea to get all the supports up off the rough framing. Then we raise the other side of the unit till the whole thing is level. And we shim under the support on the side to hold it in place. Then we shim under the middle support to fill the gap there.
Once the unit's level, we nail through the bottom corners of the brick mold into the sheathing and the framing to secure those. Before nailing anymore, we also check the side jambs for plumb and shim in the middle of the unit between the jambs and the rough framing to hold those firm. We're careful here not to create any bulges with the shims, which could mess up the window's operation. We drive nails through the jambs and the shims into the framing to fully secure those. And we finish nailing outside to finish the window. Before moving on though, we also score the shims and trim those off.
Say, Robin, can you help me center this thing?
Okay, I'm on my last nail.
Okay. Well, we ended up going with the simulated divided light window. The beauty of these is they cost a lot less than true divided light windows, which can get to be awfully expensive. In fact, the only way you can tell if these are simulated is that the grills are glued directly to the glass. And the thermal pane windows being apart, you can see that there's a little gap in between. These look a lot better than a standard double hung window with the grills just popped in. Is that pretty good?
Yeah, right there. It's kind of hard to see what we're talking about here on a finished window. So we had the manufacturer send us over some corner samples which give you a better view of how they're made. This first one is what they call single glazed sash. That means there's just one layer of glass for each pane. It used to be the standard, but it doesn't offer much insulating value compared to other products. Like this double glazing, which gives you 2 layers of glass. That virtually doubles the insulating value of the window, which can be further increased by using argon gas between the glass rather than air. You can also combine that with a low E coating on the inside to keep heat in, or on the outside to keep heat out, depending on your climate. For energy efficiency, the seal between the glass and the window frame is also crucial in preventing air infiltration. Now this is a standard one-light window sash. This is a true divided light window. The sash is divided by the wood framing into several individual panes of glass. This is the most expensive glazing option, which adds about $40 per light to the cost of a one-light window. Here's the simulated divided light treatment we ordered for our windows. See how the wood is actually glued to the glass on each side? That adds about $20 per light, half the cost of divided lights. The least expensive option is the removable grill, like this one. It goes over a one-light window for a divided light look at a cost of about $5 per light. But remember, these are just ballpark figures.
Getting back to the project now, we're installing casement windows in the second floor dormers. And we set up scaffolding to make the work a little safer on the outside. On this window, Robin carried the unit up inside the stairs and handed it to me through the opening, which was easier than hauling it up the ladder. The casements are installed the same way as the double-hung windows, with the same emphasis on getting the units level and plumb. As mentioned earlier, we ordered these windows with a wood trim, and we had it primed at the factory, which saves us a step during painting. We'll later paint them to match the trim on the rest of the house. You can also order windows with a factory finish, which will last longer than paint you apply yourself. Then as a final step, we nailed drip cap over the top of each window. This is a metal flashing that lips over the top of the trim to keep rain from seeping in behind. You don't nail into the trim since the moisture would penetrate into the nail holes, but the siding will later cover the edge that goes against the sheathing, so it's okay to nail there.
With these wood-clad windows, you do have to paint and repaint the exterior every few years to protect them from the elements. An option there is the extruded aluminum cladding, which comes with a factory finish and greatly reduces the maintenance required. You don't have to paint this. Installation is a bit different, though, with aluminum cladding, since you don't want to nail through the aluminum.
We used aluminum-clad windows in one home we contracted recently, and they came with vinyl nailing fins attached to the sides. The carpenters leveled and plumbed the windows, as we showed you earlier, and they secured them by leveling through the fins into the framing.
Well, those are the basic steps to installing a new window unit. What we'll do now is look back at a couple of past Home Time projects to talk about specific things that we didn't cover here. We'll start with the new window unit that Dean and Joanne Liedler put into an existing wall.
Installing a window in new construction is fairly straightforward, but enlarging a rough opening or creating a new opening in an existing wall gets into some fairly complicated framing.
Now each situation is different, but this project should show you a lot of the techniques that are involved. As we remodeled this kitchen, we're moving the sink down the wall a little bit, so we want to move the window over the sink too.
The first part, taking out the old window, wasn't too tough. We filled in the opening with these short cripple studs and then nailed plywood sheathing up on the outside.
Now we can go ahead and cut out the new opening here. Now we've already marked where the opening should be, and we factored in an extra 1.5 inches on the bottom for the sill and an extra 9.5 inches on top for the header.
Okay, let me jump in here. We make these cuts in the existing stud, starting with a circular saw, set the cut as deep as possible. And since a circular saw won't cut the full depth of the wall, we have to finish these cuts off with a reciprocating saw, trying to cut into the sheathing as little as possible. Oh, these are stubborn.
Yeah. What did I say? Here it comes. Our new header goes in next. This is a double 2x10. It's 47.5 inches long to run the full distance between the existing old studs, even though our rough opening only needs to be 30.5 inches. There we go. I got one started over here. For the moment, a couple of nails through the studs hold the header in place.
Here's your sill. That should fit.
The new sill runs across the tops of the old studs that we cut down. It runs into the old studs at either end.
Our next pieces form the sides of the rough opening. We put a single trimmer on the left side of the opening since it falls next to the old stud. On the right, we make sure to put in a double trimmer.
Then we put in trimmers under the sill. It's very important that the weight of the load-bearing wall above the header gets transferred down to the floor and from the floor to the foundation. These studs below the sill do this for us. Good job. Well, now we're ready to remove the sheathing and the stucco on the outside. And we drilled this hole in the middle of the opening to be used as a reference point. We'll get the measurements from here and transfer them to the outside of the stucco. Let's see, 21.
When we mark the outside, we add another 8 inches all the way around. This shows us how much of the stucco we have to remove. It's best to remove more than we need and then fill in the gap.
There we go.
I use a circular saw with a carbide blade. By cutting the edge, we avoid damaging the stucco that we're going to save. Now, I can remove the stucco using slightly less delicate techniques.
Before we cut the old siding out of the opening, we're going to secure it to our new framing. We've drawn a line on the outside that's 3/4 of an inch in from the edge of the opening. This way, our nails go into the center of the 2x4s. Once the old sheathing is secure, we cut out the center. By running the reciprocating saw along the framing, we can cut the sheathing flush with the opening.
Once we've gotten the opening to this point, putting in the window itself is the simplest part of the job. We plumb it in the opening.
Right there, hold on.
Secure it through the brick molding on the outside, and secure it through the jambs on the inside. there's no way getting around it. When you replace a window like this, you're bound to destroy some of the wall surface around it. You can't get the job done unless you replace some of the drywall or plaster on the inside.
Or the stucco or the siding on the outside. As you do window replacement projects, you'll find that your work isn't over once the window's in.
Luckily, not all window replacement projects are this difficult.
Now in this bedroom, these old double hung windows have got some damage to the wood. Now, this is probably caused from moisture or condensation that got into the sash. So it's going to take more than a little weather stripping to help this out. The first thing we did was to remove the old storm windows.
We're going to replace these with new sashes and vinyl jam liners. Now, the nice thing about these is you're able to custom order them to fit your existing windows. But obviously you do have to take some measurements. Now we started by taking measurements of the width. We did that in 2 places to make sure the window wasn't bowed. We did the height, and then we measured the diagonals to make sure the window was square. And the last thing we did is determine the angle of the sill. I use this bevel square to establish the angle on the sill. There we go, and then I transfer that to a 2x4, like so, and then I use my speed square, I line it up to that line to establish the angle, which in our case is about 11 degrees.
We've saved those side stops because we're going to put those back up later. Now we're just removing this bottom sash. It's on the same pulley and weight system as the window that we did before. To free the top sash, we first have to remove the side and top parting stops. Now you won't be needing these any longer, so you can break them if it makes them easier to remove. Now we just pull out the top sash. There we go. Okay. Look, I think this one's nailed in.
Yeah, my side's nailed in over here too.
Okay, let's see. We also want to get rid of the sash weights and pulleys, since we won't be needing them any longer.
What we're left with here is a pretty good size opening inside the jamb, so this is an area we'll definitely want to insulate. I just used some regular fiberglass insulation to fill the pocket. And I put the cover back on.
These new vinyl jam liners are going to make this window airtight. They attach to the frame with these brackets that we've spaced evenly on both sides of the frame, and it just snaps right onto the bracket. The liner has a weather flap to seal over the outside stop, and we had to take off the old storm window hardware for that to fit. You need a little force to seat the liner over the brackets.
This kit also comes with a new header parting stop. That gets nailed up next.
Now we're ready to put in the sashes. We're going to put in the top sash first. You may want to stain or paint this to match the existing frame before you put it in. Now you notice on the edges here we have a pivot. That's going to go right over the locking assembly. You want that assembly to be in the locked position and about 10 inches above the sill. Just snap it into place. With the sash in, slide it down until the pivots hit the assemblies. And this releases the assemblies and allows the sash to move up and down. Now we're ready to put the bottom sash in. We follow the same procedure, just put it on the inside track. Then all we have to do is put the stops back on.
New exterior doors come as a complete unit with the door and the top and the side jambs and the threshold. And to make a good seal along the bottom, I'm running 2 beads of caulk along the subfloor. We set the door unit in place, centering it in the opening, just like a window unit.
So we got it in there? It's especially important that the door is plumb and square. Obviously you want it to open and latch properly, so what we do now will determine how that works later on. The first thing we want to do is check the sill for level and take care of any shimming that's necessary. Okay, Jojo, it's got to come up on your end over there.
Okay.
Okay, up a little bit more. Okay, that's good right there. All right, hold on to the door. Let me nail this in on the bottom. You got it?
Yeah.
When the sill is level, we nail through the brick mold on the bottom and each side. All right, Joe, you've got it there?
Yeah.
Okay, with the bottom level and secure, I can start nailing in the top here. But before I do that, I want to make sure the side's nice and plumb. Okay, it's got to go a little bit this way. Good, right there. Okay, Joe, hold on here.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Boy, it's looking nice and straight. I'd say, what, 4 more nails along the sides,
Okay,
and then we can
all
do
right,
the top?
I'll get in a couple here.
As we nail along the top, it's a good idea to check the top jamb and make sure that the middle isn't sagging down or bowed up. And the way we do this is by sighting down the tops of the doors and adjusting the top jamb until the clearance is even. Okay, it needs to come up right there just a little bit.
Okay, right about like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, let me get a nail in here.
And then we can nail it in.
With the door, not only do you nail through the brick mold on the outside, but you also secure the jamb to the rough framing. But before we do this, we want to fill in these gaps with shims. It'll help keep the jamb straight and plumb over time. We put the shims behind all 4 hinges on each side.
On the top 2 hinges on each side, we remove one of the screws holding the hinge in place. We replace this short screw with a longer 2.5-inch screw. This way, the hinge is secured directly into the jamb.
Ready?
Yep. Okay, hold it there and get it straight. Perfect. On the lower 2 shims on each side, we use 8 penny finishing nails, driving them through the jamb, through the shim, and into the framing.
When you order your windows and doors, you need to know how thick your walls are. Now, since we have 2x6 construction, our door jambs need to be 6 inches wide.
We ordered our window jambs for 2x6 framing, but unfortunately, here you go. Unfortunately, we weren't able to order the right size jamb for the door, so we're going to add jamb extensions.
We nail these to the edges of the jamb. We're setting them a 1/4 inch in from the side. We pre-drilled the nail holes, and we're using 16 penny nails.
When we put up trim here around the door in a month or so, we'll create a 1/4 inch reveal. So you'll notice as we're putting on the extension jambs, we're leaving at least a 1/4 inch around the edge.
Well, there. That's one door down. Now, a French door like this may have 1 or 2 peculiarities that other doors don't have.
This is a fairly standard entry door. In fact, the installation procedures are basically the same as the French door we just installed.
Like all exterior doors, the first thing to go in is a little bit of sealant caulk along the bottom. You're fine.
Right there?
Yeah, you're fine up there.
Once the unit's in place, we level and plumb it and get all the nailing done on the front. Again, we nailed the corners first and then along the sides.
What's different about this sort of door is where we place the shims on the inside of the door. Now, we always have shims behind the hinges, but We also have a shim on the latch side of the door where the strike plate will go. And we'll just secure this with a nail.
Okay.
Give it a test, huh?
All right. Got my end here.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Not all doors come pre-assembled, ready to pop into the frame. This one's in pieces, so we'll have to assemble it before we install it.
With sliding glass doors, you install the frame into the rough opening before you install the doors. The frame comes in 4 parts, which screw together. Check the manufacturer's instructions for the details.
With a sliding door, it's particularly important to have a level threshold. You have to make sure that the bottom of the rough opening, or the subfloor, is level. And of course, we lay down a couple of beads of caulk.
There we go.
Okay, that's good, Jojo. Okay, if you let go, I'll get it.
You can just get it in?
Yep, I should be able to.
We're working on a second floor door here, so we have to maneuver the door out through the rough opening and work off of scaffolding or some sort of platform.
It's tight here.
Yeah. A sliding door is different than a swinging door because the weight of the door is supported by the threshold and not by the hinges on the jamb. So the threshold is the most crucial part of the door frame. Oh, it's fine. Go right ahead.
Then we proceed the same as pretty much any exterior door, and we begin by nailing the bottom of the brick mold. Okay, if you can hold that there. When the bottom is nailed, we plumb the sides and nail the top corners. Okay.
Okay, let's see where we're at here. Pull it this way. There you go.
That's good.
There you go.
And even though one side is plumb, be sure to check the other side before you nail it.
That looks good.
All right. That's good right there.
All right.
Hold it.
Then we nail the sides and head jamb. We check them before we nail and straighten out any bows. We
also secure the jambs to the frame by nailing through the shims into the sides. All right, now it's time to put in the doors themselves. And this is when you want to check the manufacturer's directions. For this particular door, we put in a wood strip here along the threshold, and the fixed door will sit in on top of that.
Here you go. Goes this way.
Ah, great. The first door is the fixed panel. This tilts into place, bottom first, and then slides into place against the jamb. To hold it in at the top, we install the parting stop next.
Right in there.
Okay. All right, hold it still right there.
There are also small angle brackets which hold the fixed panel to the jamb on the side. Once the stationary panel is secure, the sliding panel tilts in. Check to make sure that the wheels on the bottom line up the way they're supposed to in the track.
To hold the sliding panel in place, we put the head stop across the top.
All right, you got it?
Yep. And finally, by using these screws on the bottom, we adjust the sliding panel so that it's plumb and operates properly.
How's that?
Okay, Joe, that looks good.
Okay.
Try it out.
Well, different brands of sliding glass doors will have different installation techniques, so be sure to check the directions.
Yeah, that works real well.
Okay, we're set.
So, well, first you want to cut the template out from the bottom of the instructions. You'll be using this to locate the holes for the new doorknob. Now for new doors, you want to locate the position for the knob. The standard height is 38 inches up from the floor, but you do want to check with local building codes to make sure that doesn't vary in your area. Now for some doors, it'll have to be a little bit higher, like doors leading out to a pool area. Use a template to mark the centers for the holes. The face hole can be drilled for either a 2 3/4 or a 2 3/8 inch backset. Which you use depends on the backset of the doorknob you purchased. If your knob has an adjustable latch like this, you can use either backset. The template also has 2 markings for the edge hole. Which you use depends on the thickness of your door. Well, now we can drill these. For the face hole, use a drill that has a 2 1/8 inch piloted hole saw. It's important to drill as straight as possible. Once the pilot bit penetrates through the door, stop. Then using this pilot hole as a guide, finish drilling from the other side. Well, this way you won't risk tearing up the door surface. For the edge hole, use a 1-inch spade bit in the drill. Here again, it's very important that the hole is straight so the latch will strike properly. With the holes drilled, we can now install the latch. Insert it into the edge hole with a bevel side facing the door jamb. Then holding the plate parallel to the edge of the door, mark its outline. Mortise out this area with a chisel so that the latch will set flush to the door edge, or to a depth of 5/32 of an inch. Then insert the latch. Now the tip of the screwdriver works well to punch a center mark to locate the middle of the screw. Then secure the latch with 2 wood screws. Now if you have an adjustable back set, you want to make sure it's in the right position. The position furthest from the edge is a 2 3/4 inch back set. The position closer to the edge is a 2 3/8 inch back set. Now we can install the knob assembly. When you're assembling the outside knob, make sure that the notches for the key are pointing up, and leave the keys out during assembly. There you go. Then insert the posts of the outer knob through the holes in the latch.
The inner knob goes in with the screw holes at the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position, and this inner knob must be locked during installation. The post sleeves fit over the posts of the outer knob. Then secure the knobs with the 2 trim screws.
Now we can install the strike on the door jamb over here. To determine its position, we first partially close the door. Transfer the center of the latch bolt onto the jamb and draw a horizontal line. Then transfer the distance from the door face to the center of the latch onto the inside of the jamb and draw a vertical line here. Now where these 2 lines intersect will be the center of our strike hole. Now you want to drill a hole 1 inch in diameter and 5/8 inch deep. The strike should also be centered with the hole. Line the screw holes up with a vertical center line, then outline the plate. Now chisel this area just deep enough to make the strike flush with the jamb. And finally, secure the strike with the 2 remaining wood screws. With the strike plate installed, we can test the door. Now it should latch and open smoothly. And from the inside, we should be able to lock and unlock it with the turn button. From the outside, you should be able to unlock the door using the key. Also, make sure the deadlocking pin isn't entering the strike when it's latching. The door preparation for this deadbolt is similar to that of the knob sets we've just shown you. First, drill or modify the holes for the deadbolt according to the template. Also drill a 1 inch recess hole, 3/8 inch deep, into the other side of the face hole. Then mark and chisel the outline for the deadbolt faceplate. The deadbolt should always be installed with the cam up and the bolt extended. Then secure this with the wood screws. If you have an adjustable deadbolt, set the back set according to the back set on your door. With the deadbolt retracted, this can be done with a screwdriver. Now, with the bolt projected, we can install the outer trim, and we do this with the notches up and the key out. the vertical tailpiece insert through the slot.
Now, slip the tailpiece on the inside of the door. You want the 3 dimple bumps on the plate to face the door. Then insert the black mounting screws through the plate hole, the deadbolt holes, and into the outer trim holes. Then tighten securely. Now switch over the tail into the mounting plate with
These same knobs we showed you earlier. Mark the center of the bolt onto the jamb, then measure the distance from the door face to the center of the bolt, adding 1/16 of an inch, and transfer this onto the inside of the jamb. Where these lines meet, drill a 1-inch hole 1 1/8 inch deep into the jamb. Test the hole with the deadbolt and chisel out any areas that interfere with the bolt. Then outline and chisel out the area for the strike plate. Install 2 small wood screws in the small holes, then pre-drill the remaining 2 holes with a 5/32 inch drill bit and install the 2 3-inch strike screws. Now check to make sure the deadbolt's working properly. You should be able to lock and unlock it from the inside by turning the thumb turn. And from the outside, using the key, you should be able to lock and unlock the door. When you buy doors for new construction, chances are they'll already be pre-hung on their jambs, and the casing or trim will already be attached to the side. This makes hanging a door a lot simpler. Instead of having to mortise out for hinges and worry a whole lot about clearance around the door, you just place the door in the opening. Now you can plumb up the hinge side and nail it in place. You nail through the casing, through the drywall, and into the studs around the door. Then you square up the rest of the jamb. We know that the door itself is square, so we move the frame until the clearance is the same all the way around the door. We're using an air-powered finishing nailer. This sets nails a little below the surface of the trim. The nails we've installed so far don't support the jamb, strictly the casing.
We still need to secure the jambs to the rough framing, and we'll start by putting shims in the gaps behind the jamb. Once the shims are in place, we nail through them, securing the jamb to the studs. When the frame is shimmed and nailed, we break off the shims. The trim will eventually cover these broken ends. Extra trim comes with the doors, and it's identical to the trim that's attached to the frame on the other side, except it has to be cut to length.
So I cut this piece to length and put a 45-degree miter up at one end. This trim gets set back 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the jamb, so I line it up and nail it in place. If you've done your measuring and cutting properly, the joint between the pieces should be perfect.
When you have different types of doors, you have different installation techniques. For instance, we're using bifold doors on our closets, and 2 types of jambs can be used for this. A full jamb would be like what we installed for our swinging door, but we're going to be using a half jamb here. The front of the opening has an unfinished drywall corner, but the back has been wrapped with drywall and a corner bead. This 1 3/8 wide stop goes at the front of the jamb, flush with the finished wall. Here we use shims to hold the stops tight to each other and to the frame before we nail anything. We want to make sure that the stops are flush with the wall, so I use a combination square as I nail. Then the casing goes around the front of the opening. Like the swinging doors, these pieces are mitered on the corners. We're going to hold up on the rest of the installation of this bifold door. That's because we still need to put baseboards in, and it's a lot easier to put them inside the closet if the doors aren't up.
A pocket door is a whole nother set of problems. Now remember, the frame's already in. It's actually part of the wall. And like bifold door, we will install the tile. What we want to do now is install trim. Just like our other doors, we put casing on both sides. It's going to go for you. The casing is flush with the jamb because the stop will come right up next to it. I won't install the door itself until we know a little bit more about the height of the ceramic tile. And to install the door, I'll have to remove the stops, so I've left the nails sticking out just a little bit. When the time comes to hang the pocket door, after the doors have gone in, we start by attaching the roller mechanism to the top of the door. The pocket door frame has a track across the top, so by swinging the bottom of the door back, we hook the rollers onto the track. If we've installed the frame and rollers properly, the door should hang perfectly plumb inside the wall. With the pocket door, you need to make adjustments so that there's proper clearance on the bottom of the door and so that the door lines up properly with the jamb. This particular manufacturer provides a wrench to make those adjustments. The wrench grabs a nut on the roller mechanism. By turning it, you raise or lower the door. When we did our finished carpentry work, we only mounted the stops temporarily. We had to take them off to hang the door. So now we've got to put them back on. This time, when we nail the stops, we countersink the nail heads all the way into the wood.
Well, we're finally ready to install our closet doors. Now you remember we've already done the trim work on all these openings, but we've been keeping the doors in their boxes and out of harm's way until the last minute. We ordered the doors and the door hardware together from the same dealer. The first step is to install the track into the head jamb. The manufacturer should tell you where to place the track in relation to the stops. These sliding pieces snap up into the track. At the bottom of the door, I have to mount the main hanging bracket. This is secured to the floor with a wooden block and construction adhesive. And it's screwed into the jamb. Now I can set the door in place. There are two spring-loaded pins in the top of the door, and these fit into the two sliding pieces in the track. Then, by lifting the door up, I can set the bottom pin onto the bracket. Once the second door is in, I adjust both so that they're plumb. I also need to make sure that they line up at the same height.
Well, that should give you a pretty good idea of what's involved in replacing old windows and doors and putting new windows and doors in new construction.
We focused mainly on the windows and doors themselves. If you want further information on other aspects we talked about in this tape, check out the other Home Time titles on framing, finished carpentry, and building a three-season porch.
Good luck with all your projects, and thanks for watching.
Home Time is made possible by Chevy full-size pickup, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickup on the road. The National PBS series Home Time is made possible by the Stanley Works. Since 1843, Stanley has been committed to building quality tools and other products to help you do things right.